This is Rick LaLiberty with Treaty 10 News, and we're here on the former site of the Beauval Indian Residential School. This is the small graveyard that was adjacent to the residential school and the communities. In August of 2021, English River called for an investigation into the possible unmarked graves in this region. And this summer of 2023, in August, they released their findings of 93 unmarked graves at this site. Today we have Dawn Opichoq McIntyre, who is our community liaison with English River, to explain the latest developments and future anticipation of the investigation. Okay, today we're sitting with Dawn Opichoq McIntyre, who has been instrumental in putting the grave story that we have here of Beauval Indian Residential School and the recent findings of the ground penetrating radar. So we'd like to ask you, Dawn, what have you discovered up to now? What is the plans for the future? But more importantly, I guess, what are the protocols that you've been following for the communities?
Well, so far, we've completed the search of the cemetery, as you can see right behind me. And we started there because it was the most obvious place to look, as well as the fact that it was a known graveyard. So it was being utilized, and we discovered that there were 93 unmarked graves in the cemetery. So we don't know why these graves are unmarked. And further to the 93, of the 93, there are 14 that are considered to be infant size. So it was quite a finding for our small little community. So plans going forward are to determine who these children are and these infants. And that's being done as we speak. They are currently searching through archives and records, reading a lot of old records, which were handwritten and also handwritten in French. So that makes it quite challenging, and it's going to take some time. And we're hoping that we can put together enough information that we can discover who these children are and be able to honor them and their names. I can't remember the other question you asked.
Well, the protocols with the families and the communities in our region, I know you gave time for the word to go out. You made your contacts and just kind of that sensitive protocol of family members and also investigating, the past. It's many years gone by, but I guess your investigation is leading you to find family stories and also archival records from the Roman Catholic Church and probably the government as well, right?
Yes. So in terms of families, we have had a few individuals come forward who suspect that they may have a family member here. And but further to that, we are, like I said, searching the archives. We reached out to the leaders of all the communities that we could, that our elders could remember of their fellow students, where they may have been from. We reached out to the leadership in all of those communities to give everybody a heads up that the news was coming out and that it may affect some of their community members. We were very careful because we knew that it was a shocking discovery, and it might be very sensitive and delicate for some people. So, we were very careful to give a heads up, give a warning, prepare the communities to prepare their supports for the individuals who survived the residential school. And so at this point, we don't have a full scope of the specific families that the children are from. So that's one of the things that's going to come with time. For now, we're just supporting the survivors as best as we can. And like I said, there are a few individuals who believe that their loved ones are here. So we're working with that. In terms of protocols, we've also followed a lot of ceremonial protocol as we've done this. There have been numerous pipe ceremonies and sweat lodges and even night lodges that were conducted this for this whole uh, subject. I guess I'm not sure the word to use. Just for the children, for the children, for the souls, and for the families and the communities.
Well, at the moment, I guess the word would be investigation, since there's really no definite answer of what could be, and the story will unfold as it goes. So while we are investigating, I know as you mentioned the archives, how easy is it to access now the Roman Catholic archives? I guess the PAW was our administrative center for the Roman Catholic organization here in our region, the Keewatin region. And also, the provincial government may have been involved as well, and the federal government. So, is there different archives that you're searching out?
I believe there are different archives. We do have access to a number of records from the Roman Catholic Church and from the federal government. They were released to the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. And it's through there that we have an archivist who is able to access those records and has a team working on investigating. And you're exactly right using the word investigation. We don't know yet what are the circumstances of these children and these babies. We don't know what brought them to this place. And so we can't definitively say that a crime was committed. And so it is an investigation to find out what happened and why are they here.
And as you mentioned, the findings of the 93 anomalies from the ground penetrating, and this does not include the victims of the fire, right? This is above and beyond what we had lost with the tragic fire here at the residential school.
That's correct. The 19 boys are known. There is a known grave for them, and so that number does not include the 19 boys who were lost.
As part of this investigation as well, this is an active grave site that we have here. The community uses it, so communication is very critical. As I see, a security guard is posted here to with the recent incidents, I guess, of deniers from across the country and preparing for any radical, I guess, thoughts of people that may have here. But I guess being careful of how the community approaches this. You've also had a family gathering, an annual family gathering here. How is that communication going with the communities and families?
It's difficult to say. Right now, since the public release of this information lately, things have been fairly quiet. There's been a little bit of a quiet time, a time of this kind of settling with what we've found so far. The gathering provided the opportunity for us to communicate with the local people without media involved, and so we were able to just kind of reach out and listen to our elders and take that time with them and for them. And yes, we have security here 24/7 to provide some protection of the area, to ensure that that this place is respected and that it's taken care of. So further to that, I was speaking with an ex-RCMP officer who is involved with our security team, and he stated that we don't know if this is a crime scene. and the evidence needs to be preserved until we know. So, we're looking at the security for the long term, just to protect the area.
In searching and investigating through the archives, uh, I guess you're also hearing stories and other incidences along the way that may have been unrecorded or unknown. How will you, I guess, tell the story? Is there a plan to make a report, or is there a document that will be preserved? Is there copies of these archives that will be presented to the public? How do you go forward in presenting your findings?
Well, that's something that's definitely in discussion, and it's going to require some consultation with leadership and with community members. And when I say leadership and community, I'm speaking about the entire Northwest. You know, all of our communities are touched by this, and have an interest in what happens here, and how do we go forward. So definitely, by the time we're finished with this, we're going to have enough information to, probably to write a book or something, for sure. For now, it's like I said, it's just in the investigation stages, and we're compiling our information as best we can, and taking the stories and interviews from elders, and just kind of keeping all of those records, and it will be decided as we go forward what we do with all of that. Definitely reports are being done as we go.
So, as part of this investigation, it involves multiple bands, as you said, multiple communities, and you've organized yourself as a group of, I guess, of bands that come together that have an interest in the school, or is this specifically under Meadow Lake Tribal Council or English River? How are you organized to I guess sift through all of this? This is an investigation of multiple communities, but also multiple agencies.
At this point in time, English River has taken the lead on this project, and but they were doing it with the understanding that they're working on behalf of all of the other communities. And as we go forward, decisions will be made on how we communicate and how we involve the other communities with this project as well, because it's very well understood that this is, like I said, a project for all of the communities and for all of the Northwest.
Yes, English River has taken the responsibility with the land and territory here, part of Treaty 10 as well. It involves a number of communities, and you want to see a report, I guess, that'll bring forward to be presented. Is there a timeline, or is there a calendar or a sequence of events that you foresee that you want to complete by?
Honestly, I believe this work is going to be very long term. I honestly, I don't see an ending to this project at this point in time. I think we're going to be looking definitely at the next 5 years for sure. There would be written reports and updates, as we go. There will be communication and Zoom meetings, such as we've already done. There will be gatherings again, where verbal updates are given as well. And in terms of timeline or deadline, it's really fluid right now.
And the investigation, I assume, is being led by you. Is there a team that you've compromised, or is there a time that you want to see other members involved or other team members come in and help you with this? It's kind of a forensic investigation. You're going through documents, you're going through stories, oral stories. What's the logistics, I guess, of getting this done on, and it's kind of landed on your lap here. So,
Yeah. Well, there's been a number of different individuals that have been involved over the last 2 years. primarily leadership of English River has been at the forefront in bringing this project forward, and so I consult with them and let them make all the big decisions. So, uh, and then I've had a number of different. I've had a couple of different staff members that have been involved off and on, as well as we have a team from the Office of the Treaty Commissioner. We have a lead archivist who is handling the records search, and then we have our security team as well. So there's a number of different teams, a number of different individuals involved. This year, we also implemented an elders committee made up of survivors from a couple of different communities that led um, the the decision making on how to release the information and going public. And once we had the report, we needed that direction from the survivors, to how do we handle this, what do we do with this, and how do we take care of our people at the same time. So those elders were very instrumental. And going forward, I'm hoping that we can expand on some of these groups and these committees that we have that have been formed going forward.
Anybody listening to this program or hearing stories of these findings may have information or may have questions about it that may involve family or knowledge that they may have. Who would they contact at this time? Is that through the English River, the proper protocol? Call the English River office and then they'll direct them to you, or would you receive these calls directly yourself?
Right now, the proper procedure would be to go through English River, and then they can be directed to me. We will, going forward, be implementing an office where there would be a central contact place specifically for this project. But at this point, it is all through English River.
So contact English River, because this may, like you said, might expand to a number of years of investigating. So if anybody has information or has any questions, call English River office, and they'll direct you to your office here at La Plonge Reserve.
Yes.
Just in terms of, I guess, the investigation as well. This is 93 anomalies that have to be clarified on the potential, I guess, illegal activities that may have taken place. We don't know if, like, as you said, maybe criminal. But in terms of your investigation, you may be focused on the 93, but of all the other documents that you're going to be purview to, you may find other anomalies or other discrepancies in the administration of the children here, or even the practices that were done here. That's another, I guess, beyond the 93. You could be finding other information that be incriminating or embarrassing to the church or the government.
Yeah, that's correct. We do have a few survivor accounts that have directed us to continue searching outside of the graveyard as well. So there are other areas of interest that we're going to be looking at, and so there is possibly more than 93, and so far, things have been quiet. We haven't heard anything from the church, and we haven't heard anything from the government. Although I should say that the federal government is providing funds to continue the search and across Canada with all of the residential schools. But other than that, we haven't really heard much reaction from those organizations.
Yeah, I guess when the first discoveries of unmarked graves was discovered, and Chief Cadmus Delorme was here talking to the survivors here. It must have been two summers ago now. his investigations led to, I guess, documenting and finding protocols to deal with the church and the government, and those protocols opened their doors. Is that the same experience you're having? Are the doors opening up, or as you said, it's quiet, but does that mean a hesitancy, or is there an open relationship with the government and the church on accessing their records?
Oh, definitely. The doors are open. As we go, we're finding there are places to go with each step of the way. So, like the federal government did implement an office of the special interlocutor, who was charged with developing guidelines for the government and how to protect and preserve these sites. And that office has been a huge support for us. Um, and yeah, like I said, it has been opening doors. I think Chief Cadmus Delorme and with Cowess's announcement, really paved the way, especially for us here in Saskatchewan. So um, there's definitely paths that we can take, and places that we can turn to because of the because of those first searches.
Well, this is, I guess, a heartbreaking story, and also, I guess, there's also a message of hope, of putting closure to some of these stories and uncertainties that our families and communities have been facing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in terms of, I guess, clarifying or rectifying what the church and the government were trying to do, was getting families disrupted, getting people off the land. There's a colonial plan to bring them here. What is your hope for the future? That, how should we erase that colonial greed? I suppose, to come and get the land, to come and get the resources. How do we stand today in solid ground with our children, our grandchildren? What do you see that we should be focusing on? Our families need to reconcile. A lot of our communities, our Métis communities, our First Nations communities, have jurisdictions that divide us. Is there a unity required? Is there a coming together of, these are common experiences we're having with residential schools, with the schools that we had, the displacement that we've, is there a coming together that you see, or is there something that you, in your heart, wish for going forward from here to erase the reasons why why this graveyard is here, why a residential school was built? Is there something our communities and families should be coming together with?
Well, I think for sure that a lot of damage was done, and we see the effects of that in our communities. Whether it's our First Nations bands, our Métis communities, everybody has been affected by the history of colonialism, and it does affect our people to this day, and creates a lot of social issues, mental health and addictions, and things like that. So yeah, I would love to see our communities become unified again, um, and to work together to see that commonality in our history. We come from the same place. We come from the land, and I think going forward, I mean, I don't know if we can erase colonialism. It happened, and there's really nothing we can change about history. But I think the hope is that now that we learn the truth, um, we can begin to work with that, and begin to reconcile, with each other. and go forward with in unity, like you said, and turning this into a positive, rather than, so many of my generation grew up knowing that something was wrong, but not knowing what, right? And now this has sort of been a big reckoning where it's suddenly our upbringings, our communities, and our lives make sense. Our families make sense now. So it does give me a lot of hope. As sad of a story as it is, it does give me hope that now we can deal with this. We can reconcile this, and we can move forward, and we can become stronger, than we were in the past, because now we have the truth. I think whatever colonial ways are continuing to this day in terms of the land and the resources. I think our people can continue to be strong and work with it, right? Bring our teachings and our culture and our ways into a modern context, so that we can work with what is happening, and we can bring up our children in healthy, positive ways. Because reality is, I don't think people can really make a full living off of the land anymore. Um, we need to live in today's society at the same time as hanging on to those past traditions and ways they can complement each other.
Yeah, I guess that's part of this reconciliation that is challenging us to find a proper relationship. But the country is built on treaty. So treaty is meant to share and care, peace and friendship. And just this morning, watching the new premier of Manitoba getting sworn in. And to me, that's a reconciliation move, just by seeing our Indigenous take the leadership roles of this country, the premier, someday maybe even the prime minister. But these instruments of governance were also brought here. Like the legislature was designed under the British parliamentary system. The Canadian government was designed under the British parliamentary system. So there is hope in that way. And just closing off on Wab Kinu's victory, he's taken the responsibility of reconciliation as a first minister, but he also acknowledged that Manitoba is part of Treaty 10. So there's a connection to this, and maybe a partnership for you in your search and in your investigation. But we may have a willing partner in the Manitoba province just next door to us, and it's part of Treaty 10. So what do you see in the global part of Canada here as you see a First Nations premier taking his place in one of the founding provinces of this country?
Well, yeah, that his election to become premier was definitely a very, very proud moment, for all of us, for all of our people. And definitely, I think that you're right. That is reconciliation at its finest. I've always said that our Treaty 10 was signed in 1906, and it took us 117 years to get to this point that we're at. And it might take another 100 years, but to get out of it, to get out of the mess that was made. But there's a lot of hope right now. There's a lot of a turning point. Our people are becoming more and more educated. Our people are becoming smart in the ways of the way that the governance has been set up. So our people are really becoming a force in the world, globally, and so yeah, I have a lot of hope for that. And I think it's great that Wab Kinew acknowledged Treaty 10. Our Treaty 10 territory does extend to a couple of Manitoba communities in the north, and I've been there to visit, and it's beautiful. And To have the support of a premier for our Treaty 10 territory is awesome.
I guess the other casualty of the whole residential school was our languages. It was very pointed in its strategy to take the Cree, the Dene, the Machif language that we carry. Uh, how how do we regain that? Is that kimio koapahtin si the kapita nihioatsia the nihioiwa kistano, that indigenization, the knowledge of our, the trees, the relations that we have with the winged, the crawlers, the swimmers, and the four-legged. That's our indigenous foundation, and we're not converting to be Canadian. You have to be proud to be an indigenous person, as well as carry the Canadian citizenship. So, first of all, we're indigenous. We're of this land, but Canada, through treaty, has this relationship charted out for us. How do you see this treaty relationship with these discoveries, I guess, in mind? How do we tell our children that the future is good for us? What's in it for our grandchildren? Is it something we have to do, or are we waiting for somebody to do something for us?
I think our people have to make those decisions on what's right for us and what we need, you know. Um, Language, definitely, that's one of the casualties of the residential school system. I don't have my language. Um, I can pick up a few words here and there, but I think I think our education system. I really have a lot of hope that they'll really make a push going forward to instill that language back, into our children, not just to the children, but even the adults like myself and even elders who might not have their language. I'd really like to see it come back. I've heard, I've been told that our language is very spiritual, and that it can be difficult to understand a lot of the ceremonies and the prayers without having the language, because the language is so spiritual and the descriptions are so spiritual, and provide that connection to, like you said, the animals and the birds and the trees and the plants, that connection that we have, that a lot of our people are missing. So I really have a lot of hope for the future that through all of this, coming to understanding of what happened in the past will help us to restore the languages, restore the teachings. And I don't think that they're lost. I think it just needs to be revived again.
Yeah, I guess in closing, the story of Treaty 10 being signed by English River Chief, one of his hopes was to see back pay for in times of Treaty 6 adhesion. I guess they had a chance to negotiate into Treaty 6 adhesion, but they decided to wait, and negotiating that for a back pay. The other part was he had wanted an education system. I think he may have chosen this area for that, but in 1906, when he was signed, he had a vision that our children had to be educated in the new ways. But I guess now, looking at how that education system was used, maybe we also have to instill an education to revive our old ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there any discussion or dialogue to fulfill his dream of building an education system, in English River lands or Treaty 10, maybe a university of Treaty 10, or could be a cultural center of Treaty 10, anything along that lines that we may fulfill his dream?
I've heard some discussions and some talks, that some ideas that people have. I don't know of any specific plans at this point, but it's definitely a desire that's out there among people to have an education system that's specific for our people. Yeah, he wanted an education system, and we saw that the other treaty partner, what they did with that, and it didn't work. It didn't work for our people. So that's why I go back to saying, yeah, we do need an education system designed by our people, for our people, in the new ways and the old, bringing the two together.
Well, thank you very much, Dawn. Is there anything in closing you would like to add, or I may have overlooked in our questioning, but just to fulfill our obligation of messaging to our communities, is there anything you'd like to close off with?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything. Like I said, it's been a really tough road. Doing this investigating and this search, and the results were quite shocking for our people. But there's, like I said, there's a feeling and a sense of hope. We can move forward now. We can keep going and keep surviving and maybe even do more than surviving, but start living. We can start living, and we can put the past behind us, and there's so much to be grateful for and so much to be thankful for. Our survivors, our people really held strong and made us strong, and I thank them for that.
Thank you, Dawn. This is Rick LaLiberty at Treaty 10 News, CIPI TV.
Thank you, Rick.
Yes, and that was Dawn Opiko-Q McIntyre explaining the recent findings, and that any information or any questions related to this investigation can be directed to the English River First Nation in Pachunac at 396-2066. To understand this ground penetrating technology and to also understand the protocols dealing with sovereignty of data, we're including in this story of former Chief Cadmus Delorme, who was here at the family gatherings of the summer of 2022 explaining their experiences at Cowessess and their findings of unmarked graves. So here's former Chief Cadmus Delorme explaining ground penetrating technology and its protocols.
We are at such a unique moment in our life today in 2022 when Kamloops validated unmarked graves. As a chief, I always thought I was ready to help lead and to help heal. But it was so overwhelming in our nation of Cowessess when Kamloops came forward and validated their 215 unmarked graves, because it triggered many in my community. Like some of my strongest supporters and mentors in my office, they cried, they got frustrated, and I was like, okay, like what's my role here, I was thinking. Then Cowessess, we did ours. And I always knew there was unmarked graves where Cowessess was. This isn't a mass grave site, but Cowessess validated ours. And then others started to validate theirs. And there's two things. Oh, am I not loud enough? That's one thing I don't get told enough. I'm not loud. I'm usually pretty loud. There's two things that we learned at this moment in this province, in our nations, is for us as Indigenous people, it's validation. The unmarked graves are validation of the pain, frustration, anger, tiredness of trying to remain Indigenous, trying to show our kids and grandkids and great-grandkids we're tired. But we've never given up. We've always persevered. To our non-Indigenous friends and family, their shield is down right now. And they're admitting that I don't know much about the truth between Indigenous people and this province or this country. Our biggest challenge at the kitchen tables in this province today, especially from non-Indigenous, is the ignorance and accidental racism of the truth. And the unmarked graves has put us at a moment where all of us have to reset our compass just a little bit. The non-Indigenous, but even us at our kitchen tables. And I don't mean to be so direct, but even we at our Indigenous kitchen tables, we all need to adjust our compass just a little bit to make sure that our youth that are in that tent next door watching our beautiful dance, that they understand the resilience that many of us have never given up today. And so that's why it's so important at this time. And in Cowes' First Nation, I'm going to get into to what we did in our approach. So I'm going to get a little technical, then I'm going to get back to the more of the science, the storytelling of it. So please bear with me. I get your audience for 40 minutes, then your brains kind of cut me out. So I'm going to try and use the best of my 40 minutes, and hopefully there's comments and questions after. In 2018, before the pandemic, Cowes wanted to address unmarked graves at our former Marivelle Roman Catholic Residential School. As a kid, we have a bingo hall, one of the most sacred events in any community, the bingo. And on Cowes, kids would come to the bingo with their parents, but they weren't allowed in the bingo, and we weren't allowed to get in trouble outside the bingo. So we always just kind of did our thing at our bingo hall as a kid. And my mom, when we would get to the bingo hall, she would point. She would say, "Don't go play over there, my boy. There's unmarked graves." That's all she would tell me. I never asked. I just said, "Okay, Mom." And we always stayed away from that area. When I was chief in 2018, I asked, we started to talk about Cowes starting to address our intergenerational trauma as a community at that time. That's a really tough conversation to talk about in communities, but how do we address our internal intergenerational trauma? And so we said, well, let's identify the unmarked graves that were attached to the former Marivelle Residential School. So we partnered with SAS Polytechnic, an institution in this province in Regina, and we partnered with them. And we told them what we wanted to do in 2018 with radar penetrating system. Think of it like a golf push cart. If any of you are golfers, that's what it looks like. And it just has a little machine on it. And we told SAS Polytechnic, we're not scientists in this, but we know where they are. Do you have anything you could help us with? We applied for a grant from Canada and we got it. We got a grant. And so it was all paid for. And then the pandemic hit. So everybody paused in this country because we were all trying to figure out what COVID-19 was. We restarted ours the same time Kamloops came out and validated theirs of 215. And so we had SAS Polytechnic come back to Cowes. And I'm going to be very open. The person that came, very science-minded, very technical, but non-Indigenous. His home country is India. And so when he came with an open mind, but he didn't know the Indigenous mindset. And so right away I pulled him aside, and his name was Abdul. I said, "Abdul, here's a pouch of tobacco. I want you to go to that elder over there, and I want you to give that elder the pouch of tobacco and explain to that elder what you're doing here." I was like, you have to understand, we have protocols here that are non-scientific. And so that moment, Abdul opened his mind. He says, "Absolutely, Chief." So he went over there and told the elder prayed, and then Abdul, we started. And so think of it as just, we cut the grass because the grass was quite high. So it was all cut. And Abdul started. Please, I'm going to get very technical here, and I know there's support here. I'm just going to tell you the Cowes' journey. And Abdul started with this machine. And so what this machine does is it doesn't pick up bone. It doesn't pick up flesh. It doesn't pick up... what it does is it picks up dirt that was disturbed 120 years ago up to 8 feet under. That's what radar penetrating system is. And so it picks up, so if we dug a hole 8 feet right here, 100 years later, someone could come with a radar penetrating system and say someone disturbed the soil. That's what it is. And so Abdul did it. Abdul did it 2 meters by 2 meters. And myself and a counselor were standing there. So every nation has a counselor that's been a counselor for 25 years. He's usually here's real cool, kind of old school kind of counselor. That's the counselor that was beside me, is that one. And so 100% community raised, 100% street smart, if I can say it like that. So him and I were standing there, and I was telling this counselor, I don't know what questions to ask Abdul. I'm not a scientist, but I don't feel he's doing it right. And he went 2 meters by 2 meters, and finally he come to us about 20 minutes later, because Counselor Malcolm and I were standing there, and he says, yeah, I should be done in about an hour. And I was telling Malcolm, our counselor, I was like, I just don't know what to ask him, but I don't feel he's doing what we're asking him to do. So I always knew there was this grandmother from Cowes. Her name was Barb. She got trained to do Enbridge pipeline traditional gravesite searches. She was trained in this. So I called her and I said, Barb, I need you home tomorrow morning. I need you to come and watch this person do this radar penetrating system, because I don't know what to ask. So she said, okay, Chief, I'll be there in the morning. She comes from Regina. And Cowes is about an hour and 40 minutes from Regina. And I told Abdul, come back tomorrow morning. And so the next morning, Barb showed up, and Abdul showed up, and Counselor Malcolm and I showed up, and the elder showed up. We asked an elder to be there. And so Abdul started saying, yeah, I should be done in about 2 hours. And so Barb shadowed him. She looked over his shoulders, and you could see on this little screen. And sorry, I'm going to be very technical, but Barb told this person, well, you're doing 2 meters by 2 meters. You know, children are not 2 meters, she said. Like, you got to redo the whole thing, and you got to go half a meter by half a meter. And Abdul kind of argued with us. He's like, you know how long that's going to take me? And we told Abdul, we're not looking at time here. We're looking to make sure that no one gets forgotten. And so Abdul redid it. And Barb shadowed him. It took them 4 days to do, I think it's 24,000 square meters. It sounds large, but it's probably double the size of this area here. And we bought, please, I'm going to be very technical here. We bought those flags from Home Depot with the orange flag with the steel, and they come in 200s. And we ran out, so we went back and bought some more. 400, we ran out. We went and bought some more 6, and we're like, holy cow, what are we actually doing here? Like, what are we? And so when we hit 751, that's when we started to understand what we just opened up, like what we just did. And so when we were done, Abdul, Barb, Counselor Malcolm, myself, we were all like very emotional, like just standing there, and you just see all these flags. And so because I didn't go to school there, and I knew it was a Roman Catholic run residential school and the church was there, the first thing I asked is, these are not all children. And the validation came back, they're not all children. We know that. That was what the survivor told me. And so what we did is we welcomed in survivors. We wanted to have a non-public meeting, because we knew this was going to go out there, because Kamloops happened and how much people wanted to go to Kamloops. We're like, we need to validate some things here, like what's going on. And so we had we brought food. When you say there's food there, people show up. We said, we got food at the gravesite, please come down. And so about 25 people came down, and we told them, look at what we just validated. Can you tell us like what to expect or what's going on? And so here's the story. This is what we were told at that time. In 1885, the Roman Catholic priest showed up on Cowes, and they built a church within the 2 years. And then they located that gravesite, and they started using it. the Roman Catholic Church. And so all the local non-Indigenous communities and already the Cowsis citizens that were starting to go the Catholic way started to go to that church. And so what happened is the priest started giving Christian burials at the what we call the East Side in 1887. In 1898, the Maryville Residential School was opened. And from 1898 to 1960, so almost for 70 years, Roman Catholic faithgoers were able to be buried there. Also, children that attended Maryville that did not make it home were also buried there. And so in 1962, there was an argument between the priest, the chief, and another local. They had an argument in 1962. The priest got upset and told his maintenance worker, it's not called, they didn't call it a bulldozer, we call it a bulldozer today, like a tractor with a blade in front. The priest told his worker, take that bulldozer and push all these headstones. And the worker did that. And so someone in our community remembers this day. And so these were all marked, and they pushed the headstones in 1962. The church then came back and put back headstones where the sisters and the priests were, but left everybody else. And so in 1974, the Roman Catholic Church stopped overseeing the Maryville Residential School, and Indian Affairs came in and started overseeing the residential school. And so that at the west side, I'm really trying to paint a picture for you here. On the west side, you're going to see headstones. That's our community gravesite from 1974 to today. So there's a huge gap on the east side of this huge land base that's double the size of this. And today we put solar lights there. And so at night, you're going to see all these solar lights light up. So to get back to the technical side, what Abdul and SAS Polytechnic did with our team is we GPSed everyone. And so if someone was to come tonight and remove the solar lights and remove the flags, they're GPS now. And so it's all locked in on the Unmarked. In the last year, we validated that there are still 751. That is validated. And so to kind of get into the technical of the timeline, what we did is we hired a team. Barb LaValle is a Kokum from Cowses. She's the lead. And we let her create her own team. And so she has her own team. She separated them into the technical and the research. And so the technical worked with SAS Polytechnic. So we didn't just tell SAS Polytechnic, take all our information back to Regina and tell us when you're done. Like, our team is there overseeing everything, watching over the shoulder, learning, making sure that we can one day do this. And so that is pretty much validated. We were advised by our elders, we will never dig. We will never dig to validate. It's either GPS. Another one we brought in is called cadaver dogs. So those are trained dogs that can smell bone and flesh. And so we brought in cadaver dogs, and we had some areas of concern. So the cadaver dogs validated that for us. We also brought in professional drones to come in because you can see little indents to validate. So all that is the technical side, and we're pretty much done the technical side. What we're working on right now is the research side. This is the challenge we face, is Cowsis, Maryville Residential School, run by the Roman Catholic Church. In 1970, there's this elder on Cowsis, her name is Audrey. She worked for the Roman Catholic Church when they exited in 1974. And she said she remembers all these records leaving the church in 1973. And she was trying to keep some of them. And the priest threatened to charge her if she kept any of those records. And so Audrey watched all these records leave. And the way she explained it to us today, they were just binders upon binders upon binders. And so what we found out is those records went to Grayson, which is a town north of Cowsis, then to Yorkton, and now today they're in St. Boniface, Manitoba. And so when we found out, our research team went to St. Boniface. We were the first ones to go into their archives to look for Merivale records. You would think because, they're such a big organization that they would all be in files and you'd walk in there. It was the total opposite. There's just boxes upon boxes upon boxes, and they're shelved high and down. And so it's like we thought we were going to spend 2 days there. Our first 2 days, we just came back home and realized that there's boxes upon boxes. And so we had to go through each box. And then when we would read Maryville or Cowsis, we would vet it. And then we had to pause there and say, well, what are we actually looking for? And so what we decided to do is a chronological timeline. So from 1898, we did them in decades, in every 10 years. So every 10 years, with priests, with sisters, with administrators, and which students entered on the records. And so we were doing them in decades. Because what we're doing is some residential school survivors want this, they want justice. They want to make sure that someone could be charged. So they want us to treat this like a criminal, like it's a crime scene. So what we said is, well, let's put everything in chronological order. And so if any residential school survivor wants to press charges, we will give them all the evidence of who was in the school at that time. And so if there's an example of someone who was abused, say in 1952, we have who was in that school in 1952, from all the administrators, the priests, the nuns. Sorry, I'm getting very technical, and I don't mean to trigger anybody, but I'm just trying to, hopefully my message helps in your journey.
So that was then Chief Cadmus Delorme speaking to us in the summer of 2022. And we had Dawn Opichoq McIntyre explaining to us what the recent findings here at the Beauval Indian Residential School site. So in addition to the 19 boys and the nun that was lost here on the tragic fire, we also have 93 more unmarked graves that have to be investigated. This is Rick LaLiberty, Treaty 10 News, CIPI TV.